Well, it's becoming a common story. Anytime a concerned parent raises questions about inappropriate or even pornographic materials in their children's school, the legacy media will run with claims of book banning. Well, many of these books are so obscene that they can't be discussed at public school board meetings for adults. Yet removing them from classrooms and school libraries is falsely called censorship. Now, Jesus spoke of the punishment for those who cause children to sin. And every parent must be on guard to protect their children. And I say this a lot. As parents, the Lord has given us the children. He didn't give the children to the public schools or to the government. He gave them to parents. And we have both the authority and the responsibility to raise those children. Now, we can delegate the authority. We can. You can let your child go to a public school, a private school, but you can never delegate the responsibility. That will always be yours. So as parents are beginning to step forward, they're meeting a lot of resistance. But what if you had some tools that would help you, number one, uncover what is actually taking place in classrooms and understanding the laws? Most people don't realize about 43 states have laws that exempt what would be illegal outside the classroom is exempt from obscenity laws in the classroom because it's for quote-unquote educational purposes. Well, we've got someone here that has some tools for you that can help expose this and get it out of the classroom. Joining me now to discuss this, Karen England, Executive Director of Capital Resource Institute. Karen, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, thank you for having me, Tony.
So you and your organization have been on the front lines dealing with pornographic materials in the schools. A lot of parents, just don't think it's there. And, when they raise objections, as I said, they're accused of book banning. But this is a well-hidden secret. This type of material is in classrooms, not just in places like California, where you launched your initial effort. This is in red states, red counties all across America.
Oh, absolutely, Tony. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the exemption because that's what a lot of people are missing. People get up and they speak at a school board meeting, or parents are going and they're citing laws on obscenity and thinking that that's going to get rid of these books. It's not, because it's perfectly legal to have it there. So you've got to go a different route, and you've got to have a policy in place that allows you to remove these books and to have a say about removing them. The books behind me are the most commonly found. Without a doubt, I can say every one of your listeners has one of them in their school district. And as an example, you mentioned red states. Some of the worst books, I live in a red county in a red state of Tennessee. We have worse books here than every school district I've been working in California, with the exception of one California school district so far.
Now, let me stop. Is that because there's just assumed that things are okay and that we're kind of taking our hands off?
Yes, I think it's two things. I think they assumed it's okay. And I'm finding that in general with a lot of stuff going on in the schools. And what people need to know, when I moved to this red state, I was not pleasantly surprised. I was really disappointed at how quickly the left and progressives have just gone in through the side door. They're not waiting for legislation. They're going and getting on school committees and on school boards. And so this stuff is coming in, and everybody in red states thinks, oh, that's just California. But I assure you, and that's part of why we built our website, Take Back the Classroom, at takebacktheclassroom.com, is to show you specifically the books that are in your school district, and then excerpts from the book, because this is not The Catcher in the Rye. These books, and one thing our organization is doing a little bit differently than some of the other groups that are working on books, we are very selective. There are First Amendment issues. There are, the PICO case. You can't get rid of something just because of a political viewpoint, but you can remove vulgar obscenity and pornography from your public schools. And that's what we're trying to focus parents on. And so they've tried to stop me speaking several times at the school board meetings, and I just remind them it's a First Amendment issue. And if it's in your school, you've already said it's okay. You just don't want me reading it. And I just continue to read. And it's really, you'd be surprised how much and how bad it is. I had been, Tony, one of those moms that kind of poo-pooed the parent groups that were going after the books. I focused on sex ed curriculum and some of the curriculum until I really saw how bad the problem was and how frequently these books are checked out.
Okay, so let's, several questions here I have for you, Karen. Let's start with, all right, can you give me a kind of a G-rated version of what some schools are, some of these books, and what kind of things that kids are being exposed to?
Yes, G-rated. Okay,
or somewhere close in between, so I don't have to bleep you out.
I'll just tell you, they're graphic. Well, if you saw the podcast with Pastor Jack, there was no bleeping me there, and it was a little uncomfortable to do a podcast with a pastor and be reading these things.
I watched the podcast. I did.
Oh, you did?
I
okay.
did.
All right. Sorry, Tony. I am a modest Christian woman, but I'm even wearing kind of my pearls, all of that today. But yes, somebody needs to read it, because the other side, they want to paint us as book banners, and we're not. I just don't think this is appropriate for our minor children. All of those books push graphic rape and incest scenes. The Bluest Eye, graphic rape and incest scenes. And I'm talking about words that prior to me doing this, I had never said, and I didn't become a Christian until I was 28. So I never said these words, and it's throughout them. And many of them, the media likes to focus in on genderqueer, which is obscene and pornographic and should be removed. But a lot of it is erotica, white, heterosexual. And you would be shocked. Ellen Hopkins, who you can see, she's behind me, Sarah Moss, these are books that from beginning to the end are graphic erotica. I'm not exaggerating. Please go look at it in our website. You heard me read them, Tony, and
Right.
We have about 125 books waiting to be uploaded to our website that are common.
Give the website again.
takebacktheclassroom.com, and we are adding books and we are adding school districts. So in about 2 weeks, we'll have another set, probably about 100 new school districts up there. And so we're constantly adding and uploading books. And as I do this and get more exposure, people are emailing me other books. I mean, I'm finding out, like the one behind me called Tell Me, that's a new one that isn't anywhere, but a parent had seen it and sent it to me. But if you go to look, you can't find that on any of these groups, because they haven't been, what the left would say, banned or challenged yet. And one thing that I really want to empower parents, I'm not trying to ban books. I'm doing nothing different than what a librarian does. I want to curate books. These are our tax dollars, our kids' hearts and minds in our public schools. And so librarians curate, they decide if a book is legitimate or not to be put in the library, and then they set others aside. Well, I want to decide, I want parents and local community members to decide what is appropriate and what isn't for your community. And in addition, at takebacktheclassroom.com, we have a model policy. We have a toolkit that talks about the obscenity laws and why that is and what you can do and can't do. Our organization will help, but it's important. That's why we do the excerpts. We have excerpts in all of the books that are on our website, from the beginning, middle, and the end of the book. So it's not a one-off. It's not that it would be okay if there's a graphic rape scene. I don't think even one paragraph belongs with a 14-year-old in high school. However, this is from start to finish. And this is why our kids are getting addicted to porn younger and younger. It's not that you have to go find it in a field somewhere. You walk down the hallway and your buddy has it, and then you check it out after your buddy has checked it out.
And also, Karen, if this is in the school library, isn't that kind of a tacit seal of approval that this is good? Nothing wrong with it. It's here in the school library.
Oh, absolutely. One of our, that's exactly what it is. And I will tell you, some schools, it's frequent that AP classes and honors classes, depending on where you are in the nation, they often do, one of their assignments is going off one of the banned book lists. So often these books are actually assigned in AP and honors English for freshmen. And so, like the Glass Castle is one with a lot of graphic information. And it's assigned. I mean, I hear from people almost weekly about one of these books being assigned, and it's usually in an AP or an honor class. So it's not just a tacit endorsement. They're actually pushing them on kids.
Wow. I remember, the days when, Playboy and stuff used to be behind the counter at the convenience store. This is now on the school library shelf. And is it in any way restricted? I mean, what age kids are being targeted and can get a hold of these books?
Well, most of them, depending on where you're at, any age. And the American Library Association, which many school districts align their policies with, have no age limit. They do not believe that minors should have any age restriction on books whatsoever. And so they really, really believe that the stuff should not be have any sort of age on it. That is obviously not the position we take at Capital Resource Institute, but that's why you need to get your policy changed, start challenging these books that are obscene, because you can get them removed, but you can't get them removed just because they're obscene. You're not going to get a DA to come in there and do something because, like you mentioned, schools, public libraries, public schools, and universities have an exemption in over 40 states. And so that just isn't enough. You're going to have a policy, you're going to have to challenge the book, and you're going to have to be strategic about it. And that's why we want to help parents. That's why we put together the toolkit, the website. We are committed over the next several years to get rid of these books and make the left defend why they want them. I'm going to be in Chino Hills on Thursday, and the left, seeing their social media, they're ready to ban the Bible. Okay, if you want to challenge the Bible, bring it to the school board. Let's talk about why you want it banned, and then let's see which school board members, vote for that, and which ones vote for books like Burned or Push or some of those. And this is a great way for people to flip their school board to being parent friendly. There's nothing clearer than when you read these books, it's really hard for the left to defend them. It really, really is. It's that graphic.
So at your website, not only is there information about what is happening and people can find out what's happening in their areas where they live, but it's not just about getting people outraged, it's getting them engaged. You actually have a toolkit there. You have a model policy. We've just got a couple minutes left. Talk about this model policy, because this is really, it's really critical. It's a hinge on which so much of this turns.
Well, it absolutely is. Thank you, Tony, because we worked with several legal groups to come up with it, because there are First Amendment issues. And so we don't want to have any school district. I mean, we know school districts are going to be sued by the left, but we want them to prevail. And so what our policy does is it takes it out of the hands of the same people that put the book in and think this book is great and kids should read it. Typically, the process is a parent complains, they put a committee together made up of the same school people that think this is a great book, and then behind closed doors, they decide to keep it, usually, and then tell the parent we're keeping it. That's usually the practice. So our policy says, and this is what's going before Chino Valley Unified, that any community member can challenge the book. When it's challenged, the superintendent has to remove the book. And within 45 days, the school board has to have a hearing. It can be a regular school board hearing. And the school board, which are elected officials, decide if that book is put back or not. And that's where it should be. It should be with the elected officials, and it should be where you can see all in the light, like who's for these graphic rape scenes and who isn't. And I think this is going to be something that's going to help continue to flip school boards, this issue alone. I will tell you, I was at a school board meeting, and it was one where the teachers union was out there, upset about a charter school, and two books that I read from, I had two ladies come up to me afterwards and say, that isn't in our district. That isn't there. And I was like, oh, here are the schools it's in. They did not like what I read at all. And they were offended by it. So offended, they thought I was lying until I showed them exactly where it's at. Yeah. That's how graphic this stuff is.
Well, it's important to have the facts, and that's what you've done. You've done most of the legwork. You've got the policy, you've got the resources, and the how-to. So I'm going to encourage the website once again, Karen.
Take Back the Classroom, takebacktheclassroom.com. And I want you to know that I personally go through every book before it goes on the website. I don't use hyperbole. I know how important it is for us to be credible on this issue, and I'm very involved in what we put up there.
All right. Well, Karen, we're going to have to leave it there because the bell's ringing. Class is dismissed. Karen, good to see you.
All right.